All right. We ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Is it countdown time or what?
It's pretty much ready whenever we are now.
Oh.
I just got to hit start streaming.
Start the stream.
All right. Here we go. Welcome to, that was loud.
Oh my God, you just fucking bursted all of the eardrums.
Join or Die podcast.
What up?
Where this is our first stream that we're doing ever, because we are usually recording today, which is a Wednesday. But today is very exciting because you get to see all of our mistakes in real time. However, before we get started, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on all of our Instagram, Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, all of it. We do have a link tree on our bio, so go do all of that for us right now. But anyways, and let me fix this audio thing.
Anyways.
Today we're going to be talking about an Alex Jones video that came up several days before CNN started to claim that maybe it's time to break out the mask. So we're looking at new mandates coming soon. I mean, it makes sense considering the primaries are coming up. We're going to be talking about Trump's PAC, that they created a little 2004 presidential where in some ways they're sort of mocking the other candidates. We're going to be talking about Oliver Anthony and so much more. So just stick around, stay tuned. But let's talk about this first story from the Post-Millennial. So CNN claims it's time to break out the mask for new COVID surge. A network gave a COVID reality check and told its readers that a virus is here to stay. Before I start reading a little bit more, I want to give a little bit of a foundation of what I sort of mentioned where Alex Jones was talking about this and basically prefacing that there's some stuff going on. Why don't I just play it for you guys? But let me turn on the audio this time.
All 5 minutes?
No. Just to give a little.
Ladies and gentlemen, I got a call yesterday. An individual was in town, and they wanted to meet with me that I know well, and they are a high-level manager in the TSA. And I went and met with them and had a cup of coffee with them. And they said, you got to warn people.
It's kind of moving slow.
Tuesday, we got called in, the managers.
I'll give it 10 more seconds.
That by the
now
middle of September, that the new policy is being written, that this is done. They were told this is happening. This is not hypothetical. You will all have to wear masks again, and so will airport employees. Then, by the middle of October, they are going to say that everyone flying has to wear a mask. And in the meetings, people began to ask them, well, I mean, why is this happening? They said, well, because of the new variant in Canada and because of the WHO, they may, declare this. But regardless, we've been told this is going to happen.
So I'm not going to kill you with 3 more minutes of that because it was moving pretty slow. But I just wanted to lead with that because he did say this about 4 days ago. And then this is an article from, this is actually today's article, but I know they started talking about this yesterday from some of the people who I've been watching. And so in some ways, it's kind of like that phenomenon where maybe Alex Jones is right. I know he's a controversial figure, and maybe we got to add some money to the Alex Jones was right jar, but what do we think?
I have the minority opinion here, which it seems to be a repeated trend on the podcast, where I really just don't give a shit. Like, if they want me to wear a mask, fuck it, I'll wear a mask for what, an hour or two when I'm on an airplane. Like, I really could care less about a mask. It's just a mask to me. But I do understand the other point where it's about the principle of I shouldn't have to wear a mask if I don't want to wear a mask. And I think there's a big distinction between telling on people's issues on it about who's telling you to wear a mask. I feel like if it was just a mother or someone sick in my family that asked me to, wear a mask around them, we would all be cool with it. But if it's the government telling us to wear a mask and we're like, yeah, no, like, no way, like, this is horrible, our amendment rights. And so I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with wearing the mask. I think people are just upset about who's asking us to wear the mask.
Right. That's kind of where I stand. I understand the advantages and disadvantages of, like, especially because they're going to start pushing people like, hey, you got to lock down, you got to start going home. You can't be out in public. Don't get some sunlight, which is actually the more that you need, or what the thing that you actually need the most. Go get some sunlight, go do some exercise, go stay healthy, eat right, et cetera, et cetera. We've talked about it before. But it's not necessarily like a suggestion like, hey, maybe you guys should wear this. Like, no, they're going to mandate it on us. Like, hey, you have to wear a mask. I mean, peak COVID, it was so strange to see people not wearing a mask. I remember going into a Kroger's, well, here in Arizona, it's Fry's, but a Kroger store. And I was one of those outliers not wearing a mask during like peak COVID, and everyone would just look at you like, whoa, what the hell is this guy doing?
Whoa, this dude's on edge, man. Give him some space.
Exactly. So, I mean, I guess the reason why I wanted to bring this story up, well, this is kind of a big thing considering we're finally moving on, I mean, it's rare to see people wearing masks, at least for me, when I'm out in public. I mean, I work in a hospital, but I see them all the time, but out in the general public, if I'm at the mall, if I'm pumping gas or whatever, I think it feels like everyone's moving on. So why do I think this is important to talk about? Well, there's a primary election going on, and today's actually a GOP debate.
I'm so pissed that we cannot. I was so mad we couldn't record it, man.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Fox.
Exactly. Fox definitely gets a middle finger from us, but anyways. I was going somewhere with that.
Either way, man, like I'm totally for this whole, the whole stay-at-home stuff. We were talking a little bit about before the podcast about what my stay-at-home experience was like during COVID. I had the best time of my life, man. And I think a lot of people, whether they admit it or not, I think they needed to go through either that really dark period or that really happy period, because everybody I know had a very polarizing experience. Either one experience was super happy, like myself, where they blew up on TikTok, they blew up on social media handles, they were able to save some money, they got some good money from the government that they were put to good use, like just a whole list of positives. Yeah. But on the same side, there's also a whole bunch of people who had nothing but negatives. It's like, man, like me and my girlfriend at 8 years broke up because we realized we couldn't stand, with each other. Or, my relationships with my family suffered, or I got depressed because I couldn't be around people. But at the end of the day, I think as a net positive, I think staying at home is a net positive. And I really do think there should be times of the year where nothing happens. Like literally just weeks out of the year where everybody's required to stay at home, because it puts you in a perspective and it does reset your system, like the whole World Economic Forum is starting to say. But with this COVID mandate, like I said before, who really gives a shit like why you gotta wear the mask? Just wear the fucking mask. No one really cares. It's just a mask, man. I understand like it's the principle of it, like, yo, you don't gotta tell me. But at the end of the day, it's just a mask. And I feel like the issue is getting blown out of proportion more than it really needs to be. Yeah. I have a different approach where I'm not going to wear the mask. but I understand your sentiment. It is, like if you're in a hospital, there's people who are sick, who do have like immune system disabilities and all that stuff. Like, I get it. I understand that. But I think you nailed it at the beginning where you said it's not necessarily like what it is, but it's who is enforcing that. And so that's kind of like where the issue lies, in my opinion. I'm sure probably yours too. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a silly thing. And I think you're absolutely right where you say, I'm in agreement with you where we found out a lot. It was a, what is it, 2 years of just looking ourselves in the mirror as a population, as a country, what jobs and companies are able to optimize their jobs, save on their budgets. Like the thing that we were talking about before, where there was a lot of companies where like, why should we keep having this facility paying for the lights, paying for the infrastructure, the building, the water bill, the electricity bill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Why don't we optimize in such a way where, why don't we just have these guys stay at home? I mean, it's not like, everyone could do that, but there was a benefit to like several other companies. But I take the approach of like,
it should be optional. I don't think the government has any right to like mandate something like that. Like, I don't know. That's
They
just
don't have a
personally
right
me.
to, but I just like I don't.
But
care
I
if
see
they
your
ask me to do
I see your point. Like, you know, if you're going on a, let's just say like an airplane, and like they're telling you to like, hey, put on the mask. I'm like, fine, I'll put on the damn mask if you really want me to. I mean, I don't necessarily want to. And theoretically, if everyone was so concerned and everyone took their jab, it's like, well, why are you concerned about me? You took the jab. Like, shouldn't you be
Right.
protected in theory? So I don't know. It's kind of a silly thing, but I thought it was necessary to at least talk about it, just in
Yeah.
case no one knew about it. No one has heard either the Alex Jones video that I just brought up. And if you want to, you know, it's all over TikTok, it's all over X, or formerly known as Twitter. You guys can read all about it, but we at least wanted to give our take, a little bit of our take on that. But other than that, you know, I feel like the general consensus in the country is like, you know, we learned a lot
Right.
about COVID, the lockdowns, and ultimately it damaged like small businesses and all of that when you're letting Walmart run their operation, but yeah, mom and pop shop can't run
Well, yeah.
anything, and so it's destroying the, you know, the lower class. So in that capacity, I'm like, I give the finger to government itself as well in that capacity, but.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like as soon as they roll this out, no one's gonna care. They're like, yeah, whatever.
Well,
Like, we
there are
already
some
went through this.
situations where I don't think masks are appropriate at all. Like if I'm going on a run in the morning, I shouldn't have to wear a fucking mask. You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask anybody to wear a mask. Even if you did have COVID, I'd be like, yeah, just maybe keep a little bit of feet in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's an angle that we're not really talking about in this story.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just so happens to be that this story is coming out the same day that the Republican debate's going on. He's pretty much going to be the second best candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And for this, conservatives see this as a winning issue. This whole mask mandate is by far a winning issue. It's what Ron DeSantis has practically made his whole campaign about. So it's no coincidence that on the day the Republican, debate comes on, they instantly bring on a topic that Republicans feel safe talking about. Because they don't feel safe talking about other subjects like abortion or actually a lot of social issues like gay marriage. They don't feel very good on that at all. Like, notoriously, they do really bad polling numbers on it. And so by bringing this story into the news, they're pushing the conversation away from issues that'll turn off Republican voters. Because they know this is a hot button issue. They know it because people have won elections over this for the past 4 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So they know it. And that's why they're doing this story.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot some of the reasons why I even wanted to talk about this story. I mean, I prefaced it in the beginning where, okay, why is this happening again, right? Well, it happened in 2020 with COVID. Now it's happening again. We're in the primaries. And so let's start getting a little bit conspiratorial then. So my take was also, okay, so I made the joke earlier of, what was it? Something cron.
Yeah, he
The
called
primary-
he called it election cron.
Oh, election cron. That's what it
like
was.
Omicron, because all the names are named after like Omicron.
Yeah,
Bakugan,
yeah. So,
yada, yada.
so that's what I was mentioning is like, I think it just so happens that, you know, now there's a new variant. It's going to get very dangerous again. And we're going to have to start reamping and overhauling our response to this thing. And so we have to start locking people down. My theory is more, they want to make people stay at home so that they could start doing the or ballot harvesting rather, and
No, I
start.
don't think
You don't think
so.
so? I think so.
No.
That's my take.
If it was next year, I would say like, yeah, that'd be ballot.
Well, no, they're starting it right now. So by the time it gets around, like, you know, that's going to be like the operation right here. You know what? But you do bring up a good point. I wonder if it is too early. You know,
It's too early for it, man. I think the only conspiracy here is you can maybe use a line that is getting us used to these mask mandates for later, or that they're trying to make it a societal norm that every winter you put on a mask.
Yeah.
But newsflash, people, we've all been wearing a mask way before COVID, guys. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, you do make a good point. It seems a little bit too early, but what do they want to like extend it all the way till November? That seems kind of like a long shot, you know?
I think what's the actual policy is I think the people at the top think that the mask helped curb flu, and they think the people in power at the moment who are very, very pro-mask are saying, well, yeah, it worked during COVID, so it could work again during COVID. And so, you know, they're just going by that line of reasoning. I think that's really what it is.
I'm going conspiratorial. So
Yeah.
I'm going that way, but you do make a good point. Like, it almost seems too early, but for me, I feel like they're pretty desperate. they have no one on the Dem side. Like who's going to be running, you know?
Biden's going to lose for sure.
Yeah. And we already have like those 60 something poll numbers with Trump, and we'll get to that story right now. And then, you know, we're starting to feel the consensus of what the general population in this country is at with like culture stories. Like, you know, we're going to touch on Oliver Anthony, but also with like the whole Bud Light effect, the whole Target. Like, these are all gauges and ways to check the temperature of the consensus in this country, in my opinion, at least. So that's why I think culture is important, because if you see how culture is reacting to all of these things, and right now it seems like there's a backlash towards the radical left side of things, where they're starting to, and again, I think we talked about it, I don't think necessarily everyone's moving to the right now. It's just that they just keep going so far that by contrast, it seems as if people are going right, but I mean, I feel like everyone usually is just a moderate. Anyone I talk to is pretty much a moderate.
It's that 1% that is really...
That they sort of just deviate towards that other extreme.
You're that 1%, buddy, for sure.
Oh, me? What?
Yeah,
no way.
Oh, yeah.
No way. I've taken my political compass test. I'm dead
bro.
center.
On social issues, bro, you ain't dead center for shit.
I know.
Way.
I'm like full totalitarian.
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
I'm an authoritarian. I think we said it multiple times. My way is the right way.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
yeah, true.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I think that's personally for me, I think that's kind of the angle. But yeah, you know, I do have to mediate with what you said. It does seem pretty early, you know, if we're talking conspiratorial, as I was, it does seem pretty early.
I think people want you. I think the government wants you in your homes, man. That's really what they want. And I love the idea of being in your home. We were talking about it a little bit before this podcast, but I'm so for the idea of just being at home and having someone else give me everything I need to survive and allow me to pursue my creative endeavors like this or music or something like that. I really don't see what's wrong with that. If we can find a way to make it happen, I'm 100% for that. Yeah. In general.
For me, it's definitely for those who are able to. Like, I mean, we mentioned like your job. Like, yeah, you could probably do it from home.
Yeah, I can do it from home. I work from home most days of the week.
I mean, people are already doing it, like doing what is it called? Just picking up phones.
OnlyFans.
Well, OnlyFans too, but like. You know, like
sales gigs, customer
you know,
service.
There's definitely some that, you know, yeah, they could benefit largely, but you know, you benefit from going outside. So I'm not ignorant to the fact, you know, there's positive and negative to all things, and yeah, I mean, to be honest, I just don't feel like anyone's going to be listening to what the government has to say about it this time. So, to not keep boring you with that, let's move on to our next story. The one that we really wanted to do today, but because Fox is an asshole, or are a couple of assholes. We're unable to, but we at least wanted to talk about it a little bit. So this is from Timcast. Trump PAC creates 2024 vice presidential debate website trolling Fox News and other candidates.
So funny, man.
So let me preface before I go on to reading that. We wanted to talk about the presidential debate, and we wanted to actually live react, give our commentary, that kind of stuff. But
they wouldn't allow us.
Fox are doing it where they're going to start flagging everyone who does do that. If you do anything in so much like put up a clip or something to that effect, they're going to flag you. They're going to hit you with the copyright strikes and all of that stuff. And my thought of reasoning was, well, ever since Tucker Carlson left, their views have been in the gutter now, just like everyone else in the mainstream media. So they're going to have this presidential debate and just have everyone come to them. But I really don't think they're going to be doing that, you know?
No,
but
they're not going to be doing that.
But anyways,
this is funny. This is a funny story, man. I mean, what Trump is doing here is he created a website for his vice presidential candidates, which in Trump's view is every other person. That is not Trump. And what we were talking about before the podcast, we were just exchanging notes and some ideas. And once again, Eddie and I were torn on who should be the VP because we both can agree that it's most likely going to be Trump as the nominee for sure. There's almost no doubt, 60% approval rating. But Eddie and I had disagreed on who was going to be the vice presidential candidate. I know for myself, I really wanted Ron DeSantis to be Trump's VP. However, once again, Eddie is on the track of Ramaswamy, and he's just completely riding his dick.
Yeah, I mean,
Always.
Sure. But anyways, I'm a big supporter of Ramaswamy. That's no.
Oh, we know, buddy.
That's no secret.
Check last
but
week's episode.
let me go on and read this though real quick. So the Make America Great Again PAC, which supports former President Donald Trump's run for re-election, has created a 2024 vice presidential debate website to troll Fox News and the other primary candidates. So this wasn't actually Trump. It was a PAC that supports Trump.
It was Trump.
Yeah, he probably
It was probably Trump.
Go do that. Yeah, I mean, he is a troll.
It's to make America great again.
So Trump has announced that he will not be attending the debate on Wednesday, which airs on Fox News. Instead, he will sit with the network's former host Tucker Carlson for a one-on-one interview, assuredly drawing viewers away from the network's big event. And so that was kind of like my thought too, and I already mentioned it. I think Fox just wants everyone to come here, and I think, I know Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson are pretty big. They're buddies for sure. I mean,
Trump and Tucker, they're pretty close.
They're really close, and so I wonder if this was kind of like a FU to Fox in addition to everything that's going on. So Trump is already saying like, I'm not gonna join the debate. Why should I debate? I'm already polling like
he's
sixth
number
in the
one.
60s. Why am I here?
Cost?
I mean, the conversations would have been interesting, putting them all together. But yeah, he's like, well, what the hell am I gonna be doing here? Like, you guys aren't gonna win. Like half of the world doesn't even know you guys. And I saw some of the roster where like I probably know. Okay, so I don't
There's
know
5 people that
three.
Know.
These
6.
3 I don't know.
You got Ramaswamy.
Oh no, I know
Tim
Chris Christie's.
Scott,
Yeah.
Chris Christie.
Okay, so
Nikki Haley.
these
Mike
2
Pence.
I had no idea. So
If
I was like,
over on the screen, I
okay.
would be able to see it.
I have no idea who you guys are. So I think in some ways, Trump and Tucker got together and was like, hey, what's the funniest thing we could do for this thing? Because like, it's pointless. I don't know why I should debate. Why don't we host our interview in the middle of the debate and like kind of like drive people away from Fox,
I mean, but it was kind of shitty of Trump though. Like I get that he doesn't have to debate, that he's at 60%, but it's good for him to debate when he's at 60%.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good for him because I can guarantee you Ramaswamy's going to give him a harder debate.
Yes.
Any time at a harder debate versus Joe Biden. And Joe Biden's not going to do anything.
No.
And unfortunately, when Trump does go against Biden, it's going to be Trump belligerent Biden, and it's going to look really bad for the American public on Trump's part, because Trump is just going to be super aggressive, nailing Biden over the head, and the American public is going to look at that and say, "Man, why are you being so rude to this feeble old man?" And that's the exact perspective the American public's going to have.
Yeah.
And so what Trump needs to get good at is Trump needs to be good at doing things in a much more polite way, especially with someone like Biden. And a debate stage like this is one of the best times to do it. And it also gets to test out who he wants to see as his vice presidential pick. I personally think DeSantis would be an awesome pick for him. And I also think Senator Tim Scott would be a good one too.
Tim Scott's a good one. I was watching him too when he first announced his that he was running. Vivek too, you brought something up, but this was even before I was like full, like 100% on Vivek. But I did see him on Timcast, and this was like, man, probably like a year before he even announced, or several months before. And he was hinting, and so there was like a little bit of clues here and there that, this guy might be running, because he's like pretty involved in the things that he was saying, the conversation they were having.
He's very knowledgeable.
And so even before I was like 100% like on Vivek, I was thinking like, man, if he's going to be running, and once they get to our debate or to the debates, he's going to bring up a lot of really good talking points, but things that we need to address, because he's really aware with the ESG, especially with like competing with BlackRock and Vanguard, which he created a company to combat ESG. And then he knows all the things that are going on with culture. He's very in tune with that. He knows law. He has plans for all these things. And I was like, okay, if he's going to be running, and it seems like he might be, and he's like, inching towards that announcement, this is going to be a really good year for us to really talk about all these important issues, especially the esoteric ones that people don't really know about. And he's bringing them down to like he's dumbing it down. A way where he is, and simultaneously he's not. He just really is a really good with just delivering the messages in such a man, it's in a really great way where people like understand it. He's not dumbing it down where like, you know, like you have to explain it to like a third grader or anything, but like he has this way to articulate just complex ideas and in a way where like it's digestible for the average person who's not so much involved into politics or knows all these esoteric topics. So that's what I really liked about him. But now, you know, I've been listening to him a little bit more, but so yeah, at the beginning I was pretty much sold. I'm like, yeah, I think this is going to be a good guy. But yeah, man, it was really unfortunate that we could not do this specific debate, because it would have been fun.
It would have been so fun.
You know, it would have given us a little bit of toning down, a little bit, not a break, but like, you know, we're watching this in real life. We're giving our commentary if we need to, and you know, it would have been just good for everyone. And you know, Fox is just a bunch of a-holes and didn't want to let anyone stream it. So,
and I get why. They didn't want to stream it.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious as to like why do you think that Ramaswamy is the best VP pick out of everybody on the field?
For me?
Yeah. I think the viewers also really
yeah. So, man, where do I start? Well, here's some things that I do like. He understands all the complexity that's happening right now, especially culturally, because I think culture is probably number one.
Number one, for sure.
And I'll give you an example. If you could gauge the culture, you could really gauge policy, like what policies are going to work, what policies not going to work, how can you enforce, can you enforce, can you not enforce? And I'll give you an example. BLM riots. The police officers, they're not arresting the BLM rioters.
No, they're
going to arrest I mean, we've seen stories where literally people are just reciting Bible verses, and just because it's a whole lot easier to do, it's like, well, hey, you can't do that. It's like, I'm literally just reading the Bible. It's like, well, I'm going to arrest you. I'm like, dude, you see these guys like breaking down barriers and setting things on fire? You're going to arrest me, buddy? So if a culture is not in consensus, and right now we're having a lot of tension, you can't really enforce law if the culture is not up for it. So to reel it back now, he's very in touch with the culture. In the personal level, or not in the personal level, what I like about him personally is that he has a lot of first principles, especially when it comes to the Constitution. He's a Constitution absolutist. He understands it really well. He has the same spirit of the first revolution, or the American Revolution. He wants to revitalize that. He says things such as like, you know, it seems like the Republican Party just keeps running away from things, where I want to offer an alternative, where I want something that we could run towards. So he's setting an ideals, or a set of ideals for everyone to start meeting, and it's commensurate with the ideals of our founding fathers and the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the things that made us great. You know, those are some of the reasons. But some of the other reasons, you know, the one thing that I started to really pay attention to him personally, or paying attention to him at first, was when he was talking about voting. Is it a right or is it a privilege? Because this is something that I've been contending with, where, man, the big issue is that we have voters who don't know anything. And one of our episodes, maybe like two episodes ago that we were talking about, I mentioned this very briefly at the very end, the last 3 minutes, where should it be a privilege or should it be a right? Because we're doing everything we possibly can to stay at least in touch with the political, to be informed voters, where there's a lot of ignorant voters that just vote with emotion, which I'm not going to say like, is that right or wrong? But it seems like there's a party, which is the Democratic Party, that knows how to appeal to people's emotions, especially to young voters who are still in high school when they're 18, or just leaving high school. They've never lived on their own, so they don't know how these policies or how policy itself could affect their life, especially when their parents are paying for college. They get to live in mom and dad's home. So they don't know the weight of policy or like what are the advantages and disadvantages. Because I also don't think that a policy is just a positive thing. I think there's always going to be advantages and disadvantages. Any decision you make, you don't get an advantage without a disadvantage. But you could calculate it with, with the culture consensus. But anyways, I know I'm kind of like deviating a little bit, so I'll bring it back. I like that he's thinking like, okay, if you want to vote, I think instead of being 18, you have to be 25. If you want to vote in between those ages, why don't you take a civics test? So you at the very least know how the country is run. You know, how many branches of government, how do you make a law? Like, what are the principles that makes this country so great? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why don't you take the same civics test that a immigrant who's on the pathway towards citizenship should take? Where at the moment we have nothing like that. So we just have uninformed voters that are just voting with their emotion. They don't really know the repercussions of it. And there's some, once they get older, they get to live a little bit and find, like Anna Kasparian, for example, all the things that she's been voting on, at least at the social level, she's starting to see the repercussions of all of that. So how about at the very least, take a test. At the very least, you have a little bit of skin in the game because now you're involved with how the country works. And, and then you can vote. You can have your right now rather than it's always just a privilege and, Daddy Biden tells me he's going to forgive my student loans and all this stuff. So yeah, I'm going to vote for him, So, things of that sort. That's those are several reasons. I could go on and on and on, but I think I talked enough.
Oh, we know,
I talked
buddy.
enough.
Oh, we know.
But those are some of the things that I like, He's in tune with culture. I think he's talked about policy. Oh, and one more thing before I head off. Just one more thing. One more thing.
Ready for another tangent.
He wants to abolish a lot of like the three acronym services, so like FBI. I don't think he wants to abolish CIA, but
EPA.
like just a whole bunch of stuff. IRS, the Department of Education, all of that stuff. I'm all about that. But anyways, the floor is yours.
I don't know.
I said a lot. I said a lot.
I mean, pretty much what he said was he likes Ramaswamy. He loves Vivek, as we all know. That was really satisfying sound.
I hope you guys liked it too.
He liked Vivek due to his stance on cultural issues, and he likes how informed he is. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I just don't know, man. I just feel like Ramaswamy he's a good third party candidate, and he's your best shot at a third party candidate besides Bernie Sanders for you to vote for one. But I just really can't see Vivek being in the Oval Office. He has the brain for it, but I can't be the only one thinking that it's too detailed. Like, I feel like he's like, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this, and because of this is going to happen, and this, and this. And he's so logical, and he thinks things through so deeply. I feel like that's really out of touch with reality. I mean, this dude's never held political office before. Right. And so, he's talking about things like, hey, I'm going to broker peace with India. I mean, that's no small feat on the basis that he can broker India because out of everybody in the field, he's Indian. Right? So I can't really see Vivek being a good VP or a good president. What I can see him doing is being a super good advisor, right? Because one of the main roles as a VP is to control the Senate, which means you have to whip up the votes to get people in. Vivek does not know how to do that. I think a better alternative is Ron DeSantis for a VP pick. I think it's the most obvious pick for Trump. And Ron DeSantis brings a successful governorship, someone that the Republican Party relatively trusts, and he knows how to run Senate and how to whip up votes for a policy agenda that he truly believes in.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know what you mean, and I see what you're saying. I personally just think that ship sailed, but maybe if he didn't do all the mistakes that he made up until this point, then I might be saying something different. But it's so far right now, I think Vivek is kind of like the best one, in my opinion. Ooh. But anyways,
ooh, down with the pharma, bro.
But anyways, so let's move on. I know we can't really talk much because we're not covering it or anything. We're not watching it.
You'll hear the highlights next week.
But we'll talk about it a little bit later.
All we're going to cover next week is these highlights.
Yeah, but let's get into a culture story. So this is from the Post Millennial. breaking Oliver Anthony anthem skyrockets to #1 on US iTunes chart. Why is this important? Well, first off, if you guys don't know about Oliver Anthony, he's been blowing up all over the place. I think for the last 2 weeks now, maybe a week and a half, not sure, somewhere around there. He's been blowing up. He's been attacked quite a bit as of recently by the mainstream media.
He's always attacked.
But I mean, and
he's right wing. Of course, you're going to be
reality.
He's super
Well, that's one reason for sure. I don't think he's declared, but I mean, obviously, like I think he's.
I've been selling my soul for minimum wage.
I think we're safe to say he's definitely on the right side. But the reason this is important is it's a culture story. Again, I mean, the same thing that we said at the beginning, or at least at the beginning of the last thing we just talked about, where I think a good way to weight or gauge the temperature of the consensus in this country is by culture. And so how is the culture reacting to an artist like Oliver Anthony? Well, he has 3 songs on iTunes, on the top 10 of iTunes. So I think that's important to say. I think I had it right here. So he has Richmond, North of Richmond. And then he also had, what was the other one? It was Ain't Got a Dollar, which I have not heard, but I've heard the Richmond, North of Richmond. I've Got to Get Sober. Yeah. But I wanted to go through these some of these lyrics to kind of see, well, why are people relating to such a guy? What is he saying exactly? So I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is.
Oh,
it is.
I mean, what he's saying, man, is like life sucks, and I'm getting taken advantage of, and I think that really strikes a chord with most of America.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. So I think a lot of people are relating to this, and it's important for culture, as we just said. I mean, another thing about culture right now, I mean, we've had the whole Bud Light thing go on, where they're starting to sell off their subsidiary companies that they
the
own.
ones that don't sell.
Exactly. And they're even potentially, I think the previous and original owners of Bud Light want to buy it back so they could revitalize it. And so there's a little gauge of temperature to see how the culture is reacting to these things. And so not just that, we had the whole thing with Target, with the whole LGBTI or whatever, that was starting to spark some controversy. And this year, I think we just had numbers about 2 weeks ago where in 6 years they've been in the positive. And this year, after that whole controversy, they lost, I don't remember, somewhere in the millions of dollars this time. So in 6 years, because they started to endorse all this stuff, which in reality, I think they were the whole, not endorsed,
it's because
but
they were on both sides of the fence. Like, they realized they fucked up.
Thing.
Then they went like, all right, well, we kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
And then the people who originally were transgender are like, well, what do you mean you fucked up? You just told me you love me. And then they're like, no, we still do love you. And then the people on the left, the right, were like, what the fuck?
They don't make up their. You're right.
You got to pick a side.
I think for a while they were having bomb threats.
Yeah.
And all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So anyways, not to deviate
Explosive.
again, but this is a way to gauge culture right here. So it's an important story to talk about, and especially when things like this are happening, it's also necessary to support people who are fighting in the ways that they can, because not everyone could do it legislatively or anything. Just simple culture are big things where you could move people, not through like legislation, but changing the minds, and not in a negative way or in a manipulative way, but like, hey, I'm writing a song, this is what I feel right now. It's art, it's art.
Oh man, I'm a musician myself, I totally get it.
Exactly. So I don't know, what's your thought? Because you're right, you are a musician.
This whole song is is portraying one emotion that is really apparent in American culture, in really world culture, and that's the feeling of nostalgia. I think all of us can remember, like, man, don't you remember what it was like 10 years ago? Like, life wasn't like this. Don't you remember what it was like pre-COVID?
Yeah.
Or I think I'm turning 26 or 27, so I'll be like, man, don't you remember music in 2016? Or the music when I was in high school was super awesome. Or do you remember when I first had that sip of Bud Light? Like, American society and global society is living in a state of nostalgia, where we're reminiscing on times that were much better because we're not satisfied with the current time that we're in.
Yeah.
This song literally says it. He goes, "It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Wish I could wake up and make it not be true." And the chorus is even more populist, and it doesn't touch on that part of nostalgia, but it touches on this really hint of populism. It goes, "Living in the new world with an old soul, these rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they just want to have total control. We want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do, because your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end because of the rich men of Virginia." What he's really saying, and I think it's really core, is he's living in a new world with an old soul. So he's getting lost in the way that the world is becoming. Yeah. That's what he's saying. I feel so lost in this world. Why is it so bad? When did it become so bad? Like he's nostalgically reminiscing on how bad modern day is and what he wishes it would have, what he wishes they could have done better. And that's the whole point of the song. Richmond, north of Virginia, where we're like, hey, like 10 years ago, we weren't really concerned with the rich and poor gap. We weren't really concerned with that, but now we are. And so he's saying these rich people have taken advantage of us for such a long time. I'm over it. I remember when it wasn't like this, and I was so much happier back then. Why can't I go back then? Fuck these rich men of north of Virginia. It's the essential story.
Yeah, I mean, what is that, like north of, or pretty much like everyone on Capitol Hill? But yeah, no, I think you touched on something that's correct with nostalgia. Not just that, but like he's talking about those people who they feel disenfranchised. They feel hopeless with their situation. I mean, we're about to have another COVID lockdown type mandate. And
I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think the people are going to follow any type of mandate. Considering
I don't think
like
it'll happen in general. No masks, no nothing. Nothing's gonna happen.
Who knows? You're probably right, I think. But in the case if it does, ultimately what this affects, I mean, I don't know if we said it while we're live, but while thinking back in hindsight, the people who were allowed to open was Target, Walmart, all these big corporations, exactly. But the ones that were hurting, who were not allowed, or at least they had their addendums of like, okay, you could open, but only at this capacity. I'm talking about mom and pop shops. Ultimately, those are the ones that are hurting. And so that's something that we're touching on right here. It's like the way that things used to be. Maybe he's not talking about COVID, but again, art is subjective in the sense like it touches you in different ways. And at least for the time where we're at right now, the way you mentioned, the times before COVID, the times before lockdown, before a collapse of an economy,
That's
all of these things, and so you want to reminisce. And I keep saying it, beautiful way of gauging the temperature of the consensus of this government, of the government, to see like how fucked up is government, but like which is completely, but the country itself, that's why he's blowing up. That's why the media is attacking him. And I wanted to bring this story up too, because not as of recent, he turned down an $8 million recording deal, which is, I think, any musician or artist or in any kind of capacity. I mean, their family, their friends were like, "You turned out an $8 million deal."
I mean, I've turned down record deals before. Yeah, and I can understand why he would want to take it down and not want to be a part of it.
Right, because as soon as you sign that deal, like you lost all your creativity. Typically, not always. Not really.
Well, I think it depends. With he makes folk music, and folk music prides itself on like pretty much full creativity, because you need someone who is not rich to make pretty much folk music. But it is an $8 million record deal is a super big record deal. For example, Russ, which is one of the most popular white rappers out nowadays, independent artist, he was offered $6 million. And this dude is now like a Billboard 100 artist, sold out shows across the country. This dude's now making over $120 to $140 million. Wow. So to get an $8 million deal is out of this world. And $40K a month isn't a sustainable long-term number considering his Spotify numbers. To give you guys like a to like break the third wall of how much a musician makes for streaming and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
On Spotify, they're only going to pay you like 0.001 cent.
I know it's
per
not
stream.
much.
Yeah,
right?
it's less than 1/10 of a penny. So you need pretty much. I needed to make $1,000 or $3,000. I needed 1 million streams.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to stream the song 1 million times to make $3,000. So yes, 40K is super big for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money to be making off of streaming.
Mm-hmm.
However, he's not actually making that for the rest of his life. He's probably only going to be making that for maybe the next like 6 to 9 months until someone else obviously takes away what it is. But on a deeper level, as far as where music is going to what we call lo-fi.
Yeah.
The music that we listen to now is hi-fi, which means it's played at a high frequency. It's meant to energize you. It's meant to bring you up. It's meant to literally lift you up and bring you a part of the music. Think like club music or atmosphere music. Think like the Migos, you know, humma, mama. Where now lo-fi is all about slower frequencies, a lot slower sound, and a lot more of an intimate experience.
And
which
a
is
lot
what
of
music is
instrumentals,
turning
right?
into.
There's
Yep.
like a
well,
big-
folk, his music is just an instrumental. If you notice, his song doesn't have any kicks, no hi-hats, snares, no nothing. All it is his voice is a melody and a really in one big guitar. It's very reminiscent of how Ed Sheeran had started his career, which Ed Sheeran is beyond his time in regards to taste in music. And so music now is becoming a lot less high frequency and a lot busier to a lot more slower and intimate. And you can always tell what the culture is of society by looking at the top 20 to 50 songs in America and what they're talking about. For the past 5 years, before we were hit with the recession this year, it was all about partying, drugs, women, having fun, going out, making memories. And now you're starting to see slowly but surely other songs come out where it's like, hey, like I did all that. I'm still kind of broke and my life sucks. What can I do about it? And pretty much people bitching about how bad their life sucks. NF is one of the most popular artists out at the moment, and he said the same thing. And it's a trend specifically with male singers, which we can get into. The reason why male singers typically talk about how bad life sucks, where women now are talking about empowerment, but that's like that's a
It's a
whole
different
nother
conversation.
story
Yeah.
for a different ballgame. But he does
Yeah.
talk about it in the song, something similar.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean,
That was a long rant.
what are no, it's all right. What are artists typically talking about, speaking, etc. Right, I think right now
3 things:
is, what is it?
gold,
Oh, I was gonna
glory, and girls. I call it the 3 Gs.
Oh, okay.
If you make
Oh, I
any
like
songs,
that.
if you make any song with the 3 Gs, man, it's gonna go off. And some of them will put a 4th G and put God in there, but it's not really God they're talking about. It's the things that God gives them, and that's another story.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, like, everything that is expedient, like everything, it's just hedonism. Like anything that just
Yeah.
makes me happy. Like
Right.
as long as I'm happy,
I
like,
do what
life
makes
is
me
good.
happy, and I don't do it.
But here's the thing. Like, I mean, this is something that it's a big part of like my convictions insofar as like philosophy and like beliefs go. It's like, for me, life is not, happiness is a byproduct of the things that I do. And how I find something of meaning is like, if I have a problem in my life, well, there's my adventure. And if I want to find meaning in life, it's going to be within that adventure. And so typically what, mainstream artists or whoever's in mainstream media, whatever, right? They usually just promote hedonism. It's like whatever maximizes your happiness. But it's like, no, because personally, I don't think life is about happiness. However, whenever life grants you a little bit of happiness, like, hold on to it and experience it and enjoy it, because you're being fortunate right now. But, what you need is, when the hard times come, happiness isn't there. So you need something that is so deep and meaningful that when those times come, it's so meaningful that's willing to, like, that can push you towards those limits, because hard times are coming, whether you like it or not.
Oh, no, they're coming.
They're
changing
coming.
The definitions of a recession.
And so if you're just perpetually trying to find happiness, you're not learning how to overcome these hard times that are going to be coming. Because, like, You know, if you lost a loved one or whatever tragedy, you know, fill in the blank. It's not like you could just throw money at it. Like, I'm not just gonna like buy myself something because someone passed away. Like, no, like I need to find a problem in my life. I need to find struggle, and within that struggle, that's where I'm gonna find meaning. And when I find that meaning, that's what's gonna pursue me to like do things to lift me off of that suffering, you know. And I don't remember why I'm saying that, but but I mean, I guess I'm just giving an opinion on maybe something that you might have said. But yeah, I mean, this is where we're at right now insofar as culture, and a lot of people are resonating with it. And I think it's a great thing. You know, this isn't necessarily my type of music, but I like it. You know,
it will become the type of mainstream music.
I think it will.
It's going. This whole sound's gonna go up.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily something I've heard before. Like, for example, my wife is like, I know folk and all of that stuff, but this is like a very unique style that I personally haven't really heard. I thought it was going to be more like country, and I know it somewhat has an element of it, and I'm not a big country fan. Like I don't have any problems with it either. It's just, you know, it's not me, but my wife's really into it. So when I was first hearing about him, and I was like, okay, it's going to be a country singer probably. And no, it was completely, again, for me, because I haven't heard much like this, it was unique. And I'm like, okay, I could get behind this. Like, and the videos that he has, when he put out this song, like, it was unique too, you know. You could see the passion behind like the words that he's saying. Like, he just has a guitar, he has a mic, and he's just like singing his heart out. And I'm like, okay, I like this. Like, I believe him. I believe him. So very unique guy. I think he's someone to be watching out. And of course, mainstream media is kind of downplaying this guy, because I think he's saying stuff, I mean, in some ways insulting.
He's saying stuff you shouldn't say. Yeah. And for anybody who wants like to hear more about this music, you can Google 3 different genres and you'll get stuff similar. He's what we would call an indie folk artist. So he's indie folk. But you also have indie pop and indie rock. So if you're ever interested in anything like kind of the sound, you'll be interested in indie pop, indie rock, and indie folk.
Okay.
And think music that comes from the 1980s that hippies would make. Those are the 3 genres they would mainly go for.
Well, right on. Well, that's good for me to know, because I wasn't really aware of this kind of music. So right on. So let's get into this next one, and probably our final one. So yes, Biden appears to fall asleep.
Sleepy Joe. Living
up to his name, that's for sure. But while meeting Maui survivors, compares fire to almost losing his Corvette. All right, so this is a direct quote from what he said when he was speaking. To make a long story short, I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat, he said. And it goes on to read, President Joe Biden is facing extreme backlash online after appearing to fall asleep while meeting with Maui survivors and comparing the fire to almost losing his Corvette. And so we're just pretty much giving an update on the whole Maui fires. If you're not keeping up with it, well, here it is. I don't remember when it was. Maybe it was like 2 nights ago or something. Maybe August 22nd. Maybe that's when it was, because I don't know the date. But yeah, he was in Maui. He was gonna address some things. Finally, gonna be there. Finally. Although I don't know if you saw videos where he was getting a very warm welcome. Did you see those videos?
I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it, all right.
So that's pretty funny. But anyways, here's a little bit of a tragedy, because I know the last time we spoke, we were flirting around the numbers of like maybe 600 just missing. And about like
I have no idea.
90, if I remember correctly, it was like 90 something confirmed.
96 was the amount that last week when we had covered it.
Yeah,
96.
like confirmed deaths.
Yeah,
like
and now it's at like what, 1,000?
Yeah, so it is an estimate, it is estimated that over 1,000 people, and including children, which I was reading someone else's article where it's looking like the majority are children, which is tragic, but remain missing. Over 100 deaths have been confirmed, so we're definitely over 100 now, but we still can't find about 1,000 people. And unfortunately, my mind goes is, I don't think you're gonna find them. I feel
No,
like
they're burnt, buddy.
Exactly.
They're burnt. How are you gonna
Like,
find these kids?
I think they're ashes now, unfortunately,
Yeah.
which is tragic. But so it goes on to read, the town of Lahaina have been almost entirely reduced to ashes after the wildfire rampage out of the control on August 8th. Biden did not visit until Monday, taking 2 vacations before appearing on the island.
He didn't
2
even send
vacations.
Kamala. He has a whole vice president that's supposed to help him out.
Yeah.
Doesn't even send Kamala.
Exactly, but
Like-
you know what I was imagining? As soon as he said Kamala, this is
What?
what I would imagine. You've seen her speeches, right?
Yeah, they suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her talks were probably going to be like, fires are hot. And when you touch it, it burns. You know, like that's the spirit of how she talks. And yeah, so
No, she dumbs it
fires
down.
are dangerous. So danger or fire is bad. So I mean, I think that was going
Something
to be
similar.
something very akin to that. Maybe not.
I
but,
just
like,
don't know
that's-
why. I don't know why she was
Yeah.
not sent. I mean, honestly, this is equivalent to like Hurricane Katrina blunder of George Bush.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really bad.
I mean, do we
he's-
even know where she was?
I want to say she was abroad.
Okay.
But I don't remember though. All I know is that Joe Biden is sitting here falling asleep, talking about the survivors,
Yeah.
equating the death of life of millions of children, or
Yeah.
hundreds of, not hundreds, but thousands of children
Uh-huh.
and adults, plants, animals, to his '67 Corvette,
Mhm.
and it just seems really out of touch.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not appropriate.
No.
And the more I see videos of this guy, the more I'm sitting here thinking like, this guy's controlling our nuclear codes. Like, I'm convinced this guy needs somebody to help him get dressed out of bed.
Yeah.
I don't think this dude should be anywhere near the Oval Office.
No.
And I'm voting for anybody but Joe Biden.
I know. That's kind of like the
Yeah.
tragedy, though. I mean, luckily we do have some pretty good candidates on the Republican
No.
side. But, or do you mean the Democratic side?
No,
Or just in general,
there's only one candidate who's going to be the Republican nominee.
which is Trump?
There isn't any like candidates. It's just one candidate.
Yeah, it's Trump. I
It's
mean,
Trump.
Vivek, when I speak about Vivek, that's more like my wish list. You know, that's my Amazon wish list.
Oh.
That's not going to get touched.
Waiting
So-
till Black Friday to get him on a
So when I
discount.
speak on Vivek's or about Vivek, you know, I should make it clear. Although I would support the man, but he's more like my wish list, Amazon. You know, like he's there, and like I want that, but like
You want it so bad.
we know I'm
man.
not gonna buy it. So,
Man.
anyways, but no, you're absolutely right, man. Like, holy crap, he is in charge of our nuclear codes, which hypothetically, if we were in that situation, would he fall asleep at the nuclear code? Like, you know, putting those codes in, all of that stuff. Like, Jesus Christ, just thinking about it. But very quickly, I think it's necessary
Yeah.
to play a little bit of this video so you guys know what I mean. So here we go. Let me put this on big screen. Boom.
Full screen it.
We are a community that relies on family, on ohana,
Dude.
whether by
Oh,
blood
he just woke up.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, man.
But like many others, my son's home burned down.
Okay, he just woke up. But
My daughter's home.
Yeah, no, he was definitely sleeping.
I think he fell asleep for a moment, right?
I mean, just how pathetic, man.
Look
I
at
mean,
him.
he could also be looking at his phone.
That relies
He could
on
be.
He could be. But his eyes are fully closed.
whether by blood or by friendship.
But maybe not. I mean, who knows? You
The
know,
dude sucks, man. That's what we were trying to get at.
he definitely sucks. That
He
is
sucks.
for sure. He should not be there. I'm sure other people are pulling his strings. There was something that I wanted to say, but I can't remember that was pretty relevant to what we were saying. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So let's go back to the people missing. That's potentially a lot of kids. And I was reading or listening somewhere that, because we're thinking, well, how is it that kids are being like the large casualties? I mean, we got to think of, you know, while parents are out shopping or potentially like at work and the fires are coming, the kids don't know what to do when they're at home. So they're like trapped in there. So those were kind of like the imageries that I was like thinking about when I was hearing this. I'm like, dude,
That's depressing.
it's depressing. And I'm like, dude, my God. And so, yeah, before we went on this little tangent, yeah, it took him two vacations before appearing, and all we really needed, because we get it, man, like you're the commander in chief, you're probably doing X, Y, and Z, or
No, there is no excuse. This was important for him, and he should have done it.
No,
There's no other excuse.
exactly, no.
I have zero understanding for this. Man.
no, exactly. So what
He
I was
sucked.
gonna say is, not that like, hey, we get that you're busy. It's like, but in between, if you are busy, at the very least, you need to make a statement. Because Homeboy wasn't even making a statement.
Said no comment.
No comment. Exactly. He
like
did
grandpa.
not make a statement, but this was like after the fact.
Yeah.
And then, but in between while it was happening, okay, if you're busy, which you weren't, I mean, you were busy with your vacation, but like, did no one tell him like, Mr. President, like Maui's on fire?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I got to say something. Like, I know I'm in my Speedo and whatnot, but like,
Dude,
Mr. President, you got to say at least something. Like, if it's in a video form, that's totally fine. At least you're giving the American population, at least in Maui, like a little bit of hope. Like, hey, I acknowledge that this is happening. A natural disaster is happening. We're looking at it. We're going to see where we could allocate, you know, our best resources to help Maui out, what we're going to do, et cetera, et cetera. Just say something for the love of God. And he did not do that. He went on 2 vacations before he even addressed it. And now he's falling asleep while he's actually in Maui. And not just that, but also is relating how, you know, thousands of people are missing, over 100 deaths, relating it to his personal story. I'm like, well, you know, fires. I almost lost my wife and my 67 Corvette and my cat.
It's like, come on, buddy.
It's like,
come on.
I
mean, who is doing his PR? That's what I want to know.
John Fetterman.
I mean, I don't know if you know, but I did PR for a while.
No.
Like, so I'm used to press relations and stuff, specifically with musicians. This would never fly. This would never fly.
Yeah.
And so to close out the podcast, Joe Biden really sucks. And we really wanted him to have some sort of response or tell us what was wrong, or not what was wrong, but how to solve the issues. We wanted to see more from him, or at least from somebody within the administration. Nobody did anything in the administration, and it's really off-putting. It's off-putting.
So, yeah, and even if he didn't have anything in proximities to make an address, you're exactly right. Where the hell's Kamala?
Send
You're the
somebody.
VP. Like, Jesus. And at the very least, because we know if the president's gone, vice president, the next person to hold that is our...
is Kamala.
No. If Kamala's gone and Joe is gone, the next person is it's a House of Representatives, the House Speaker. It would be Kevin McCarthy. At the very least, like, well, again, I didn't know if he'd made a statement or not, so he could have. And if he did, then good for him, man. That's going to be looking good for the Republican side. But like, homeboy, like, you're talking about your 67 Corvette and falling asleep when you're actually there after your 2 vacations, and I think that's enough that I could talk about this guy, because I think
we could talk about him forever, but at the end of the day, man, he should have done something more about the fire. And while you're here, make sure to like the video. As always, hit subscribe. We're live streaming on Rumble at the moment, so we would love some constructive feedback on how the live stream went. And besides that, I hope you all have a blessed day, a blessed night, and I hope to see you guys in the comment section.
Yeah, exactly.
Peace.
Don't forget to follow us. Subscribe. Again, it only takes a minute. But until next time, guys, leave us some comments.
Deuce.
Peace.